champion of the future indeed. We had to go back a long way, 30 years in fact, 1985. And the star of the future is a star of the present. Welcome to you, Ross.
Thanks, Stuart. Pleasure to be here.
You would have loved to see those grounds. You'll have to go back and explain to Hayden Ballantyne what mud actually is.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see the mud on the ground, and you have to clack heads with them to get them to wear screw-ins now. They all slip and slide a little bit.
How do you deal with that? Because it's one of my bugbears, the screw-ins.
Oh, it's been difficult. We're a team that everyone's noticing we've been slipping over, so we had a discussion during the week on it, and I said, look, just professionals. I think coming from the West, we don't play in the mud or the wet much, so I think the Eastern Staters have more experience. So we did have a discussion about it, and a couple of boys made some adjustments on the weekend, which is pleasing. Did
a couple of boys just not have screw-ins because they're pretty hard to get, evidently?
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't. And one of our players wore grass cats in the final last year and slipped, and that was quite a fierce conversation.
You're naming names when you do that?
Yeah, no, not particularly. Look, it's hard because the screws, we played in them, they're hard on your feet, but you know, sometimes they're just pertinent, and you've got to wear the appropriate footwear.
Now, you're flying along at the moment, and you've also turned into the master of deflection, haven't you? Just want you to have a listen to this grab, please.
In my view, we're all chasing Hawthorn still. Their percentage tells you, and their scoring and their player availability just tells you. And I think they've had 3 lapses that have maybe cost them 3 games, so they could easily be 1 loss. And I still think they're the best team in the competition. We're all chasing them.
You're 10-1 and you're chasing no one, mate.
Yeah, the win-loss tell us that, but I firmly believe they're still proven to be the best team in the competition. Their record over the last couple of years speaks for it. Bar a couple of lapses, I really think they'll have a couple more wins on the board. I know that seems obvious to say, and it's not flippant. We're all chasing them until it's proven otherwise, and particularly their offensive side of the game, they're great defensively, and offensively we had a good look at them. We've tried to model a few things. It's certainly improved us, although scoring the last few weeks has dried up, and until proven otherwise, I still believe they're the best team.
It's interesting you talk about scoring drying up because you had a few issues on the weekend. You didn't play particularly well against a team that's been struggling in the Gold Coast Suns, but when you've got a weapon like Nat Fyfe that you can just whip out of the midfield, put him forward, all of a sudden he starts winning one-on-one straight away, kicks you a couple of goals. It's a great luxury to have, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Just see him here. The ability to create the one-on-ones was good by the players around him, but he's virtually unbeatable, and you must get tempted at different stages because he's so good on ball, but you know how good he is as a forward.
Well, it was a discussion at half-time. He hadn't had a lot midfield, would have plenty of entries. The forwards were struggling to win their one-on-ones, and he went forward and produced pretty quickly, and actually turned to Peter Sumich and said, he makes it look easy, doesn't he? So
he's got great, obviously got great leg strength. Is he strong in the gym, or he's just footy strong?
He is. He's super powerful. He is our highest sort of leg press and squatter. Yeah. But he's worked hard on it. Hasn't come naturally. He come through the door at 68 kilos. So he, in his first 3 years, put on 20 kilos. So he's a dedicated athlete and a fierce competitor, but his special is his aerial strength. And we will play more forward, just sort of we don't want to be totally dependent through the midfield, and it was a discussion. He went and delivered, and as we struggled, we said, well, let's get him back in the midfield.
He's clearly the number one-on-one contest player in the competition by a margin. Josh Kennedy from West Coast is second, but you have a look at these numbers. 61% of one-on-one contests he wins.
We probably should kick it to him more.
Does it remind you of your time when you were assistant coach at Carlton, and Cooter had that unbelievable period where he was untouchable? 1-on-1, 1 against 2, 1 against 3, just pick up the ball in one hand and away he went?
Yeah, Cooter was unbelievable through that patch, but Nathan's doing it at such a young age.
Yeah.
Anthony took a number of years to get going, and Nathan's got a massive tank, so Cooter had to have a lot of players covering for him, but Cooter won the ball midfield and forward, and Cooter's decision-making was unbelievable. But Nathan's doing it at such a young age. He's a massive influence at our footy club, and where we're fortunate is he's such a team player and he drives standards Monday to Friday. So if he was just a great player and let things flow along and he worried about himself, you'd be a little bit concerned, but he really is driving the group along with the rest of the leaders.
You've had a tough experience through the year, and it came to a head during the week with Ryan Crowley finally copping a 12-month suspension. How have you handled it, and where have you left it with him and the club and his contract? Well,
I've been engaged with Ryan all the way along, and he's been at the club and involved as much as he can be and mentally could be. Had a discussion what had occurred. What we've committed to is go away and absorb it. He would have liked better, but he understands the rationale behind the decision. We'll all come back together and look at the immediate future, and, you know, with a view to make a decision for Ryan to do the training, come back 2 months out. And I'm always really supportive of players. I always say to them, I'll support you till I can't. And by can't is, you're breaking the law and there's not much we can do about it. But anything in between that, he's really been a great warrior for us, particularly in my time there. So we'll support him, but we still need to get together and make a firm decision.
Do you see any set of circumstances that could see him playing this year?
If that was the commitment, if Ryan said, I'll commit to train, keep fit, come back, I've played Stevie Baker, I think, of 14 weeks not playing straight into a grand final. So you can do it, but we're delivering without Ryan. Until you're in finals, you can't make any decisions. If we get to that stage, we'll consider it. But, yeah, potentially it could happen.
Ryan Crowley is obviously the hard tagger. You've obviously had to adjust the game plan a little bit, especially in the centre square. It seems to have helped you, though.
Yep.
Certainly helped your attack.
Certainly, the numbers tell us that.
Yeah.
And that was being involved with Clarko a little bit, the team defence, trust your team defence. And we've got a great team defence. And that proactiveness, if you just look on raw numbers, you only got 5 that are proactive. You take 1 out of it, so it's percentage terms. So there's a few other guys that have been happy Ryan's not there because they can get through. Right. And we have been more offensive and spreading the ball more.
You mentioned Clarko there. I wanted to ask you about that. So you go away to the international series. You've got Alistair Clarkson, Chris Scott and yourself, 3 of the leading coaches in the competition. Did you swap a few trade secrets? Did you share or were you all a little guarded?
No, we weren't guarded. Certainly had some great conversations. I respect them enormously. Innovators, great characters, and I really enjoyed it. I was hesitant because I tend to stick to myself a little bit, but it was one of the great thrills of my coaching experience to be involved with the elite players and coaches. And Clarko was a marvel. How he cut through and brought a group together, set standards, collaboration, and great leadership and direction. It was a great thrill for me, and you can clearly see why he's a great coach, and it was a privilege.
You seem to have changed so obviously you had a big influence, Alistair Clarkson, but you seem to have changed your game style even this year compared to last year. Is a big part of getting the ball moving faster, especially from defence to attack. Hawthorn does that really well. You've obviously taken a big leaf out of there.
Yeah, we've improved our game sense. It's well documented. We've restructured our summer. We certainly more game sense training, more mini football, and we recognise the benchmarks there. And they put an offensive gap on everyone, and that was clearly their grand final day and all to see. But it was there all year, so it'd be naive of me to think we don't need to improve. And up to the last 3 weeks, our scoring's been quite strong, and we've been sitting around in the top 4. We've still got progress to make, and it's good to be out there chasing them and improving.
I always love listening to you when you speak. You make a lot of sense. You've also got a nice, dry sense of humour. After you lost to Richmond and you were asked at the press conference about the world record taps, I just marvelled at the way you were able to just do it with a grin on your face. But we'll have a listen to the comment first, and then I'll get your reaction off the back.
Did he? Terrific. That's good. We'll go up in the record books and we'll go down as losers. No worries. Thank you. Good night.
I still laugh when I see that.
It's not pre-planned, I know that.
The little thumbs up on the way out.
But
I understand what you're coming from.
Suited Jason's narrative because he doesn't rate ruckman and he doesn't rate hit-outs to advantage. And yet I can still remember
Well, clearly that night he was right.
I can still remember you looking down the barrel saying, we are going to rebuild this midfield. And you've actually rebuilt it again and again and again to the point where your results from your clearances and your stoppages are going through the roof, in particular this year.
Yeah, we're scoring really quite heavily.
Yep.
We wanted to score more from centre square bounces. Our forward 50 stoppage work is still down when you look at the benchmark, West Coast and Hawthorn. So we've still got plenty of improvement there. We're moving the ball better. We're capitalising on Aaron's tap-outs better. So, yeah, you need both, obviously. You need great midfield players and you need really good ruckmen.
What's your thoughts on the third man up? It's a growing debate this week and it will continue to grow. It's on the agenda for the Rules Committee to discuss in a week's time. Whether or not it changes or not, who knows? But your thoughts? Because when you go up third man, you actually go worse than when you leave it to Big Aaron.
Fascinating discussion. I saw the commentary and it's really interesting. And because we've got Aaron Sandilands, teams will do it. So I think the important piece is that teams will be allowed to do it, but when teams are trying to prevent and just check to protect their ruckman a little bit, that it's not overly penalised by the umpires. I think they get the jump and you get to get a little bit of body on them. And sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, who's the ruckman, and you're screening out the third jumper and you'll get pinned. So I think you just need some clarity on that. But I like it. I like the initiative. And when midfield, Hawthorn do it very well. A lot of teams do it very well. And if you third up, if midfielders aren't playing you, you're proactive, so then it draws them out. They might be standing in cover to stop your exit. So by going third up, they come to you.
When you saw one of your colleagues on the international rules pick up Reece Stanley, did you think that it would turn into this nice little mix that they're going and they can throw Mitch Clark in there and Walker as well?
Yeah, I didn't think too much about it. Reece was a very young player, and in 2010 he played 9 games as a... What he is a ruckman.
Yeah.
That's his best position. Instinctive, he was drafted as a ruckman, and they take a long time, and they've got a great teaching culture down there, so he was always going to benefit.
With players, you analyse everything they do. What about as a coach now? Is it all self-analysis, or do you have someone that analyses Ross Lyon and gives you feedback? Because I'm sure you're always looking to improve as well.
Yeah, I have. Since I was appointed, I've got someone that has sat at St Kilda, who was with me the whole period, and since I've been at the Dockers, he listens to every pre-game. He used to sit in the box at St Kilda and every review, and he'll certainly give strong feedback on my communication, the messaging sent, and the psychology of what's going on with the group. So I find it really beneficial, but each to their own. I'm not sure everyone needs it.
Your defence has been hit hard. You've struggled with some injuries concerns last year, and you had a reasonably good start to this season, but all of a sudden now your key defenders are under the microscope.
Yeah, they are. We've sort of had some hits there, and like at the start of the year, and that's no Ryan Crowley, no Zach Dawson, but what happened is we were bouncing out more. So Michael Johnson, from a roll-off defender, went and played key, and Garrick Ibbotson. So you spoke about our run and bounce. So that's been a bump-on effect of those injuries, and then we've lost a couple more. But it doesn't matter who's there. If the pressure's not on up the field, everyone gets scored against. So, but Alex Pearce was terrific, young 196 second-year player, and he's got a big future, and he stood up again on the weekend. So we've got some challenges, but it's won and lost in the midfield. Our midfield's intact. We've got no excuse.
I've got a couple of passages of play I want to show you, and I know, Jason, you'd like to have a look at the first one.
Well, there was one passage of play against Gold Coast where they virtually took it in slow fashion from the back pocket, and it was kick, mark, a handball, mark, kicked into the forward 50, and then marked, and then a goal was kicked. And you just don't see this happen, a slow passage like this. You don't see it happen against Freo. And I was just wondering what broke down in your defensive structure.
Well, that's really easy. I clearly remember it. You're going to see 3 one-on-one contests. So Pearce got beaten by a key forward. Luke McFarlane got beaten. Aaron was taken on the blind side down. So it's really 2 one-on-ones, an uncontested mark, and they'll pass in. We've got good fold back, and someone slips and just lets him out goal side. And they hit him, there it goes, through 3. And it's an easy layup and a good finish. So contested marks are really valuable. So down the line, if someone clunks 1, 2, 3, you're going to be in trouble. But even there, we had 4. The world was back there. So, and that's, if you go slow, we'll get back.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen a lot. It happened a little bit against Richmond, but that's just some sloppy ball watching. It's the worst defensive error you can make, which is ball watch.
The other passage is on the back of the focus has been on the Demons and Paul Roos and their inability to get numbers back. Here we are with 1 minute of play remaining. You've won the clearance. You've got all your numbers back. You've won the clearance and you've kicked it essentially to nobody. And yet, despite the fact that you've got all the numbers back, the Suns give themselves 15 seconds to win the game because this one goes kick mark to Lynch and he kicks a goal. So it's not as simple as just getting numbers back, is it?
No, it's not. Michael Walters should have kicked sideways. So I listened to the discussion on Melbourne. It's a bit like, there's so many basics in your game plan you've got to execute. Scenario training sounds sexy, but at the end of the day, if you don't fix the fundamentals, you don't get to the scenario. So Paul's coming from a long way back fixing the fundamentals. Look, I would have been back there, let alone... I would have been out of the box back there. But, but in the box, we do have a time clock. So I think to hear players have got to know how many goals are kicked for the quarter, I don't think that's reasonable. 2 minutes to go, send out the runner.
Yep.
If we get in front, you're going to have to get numbers back. That's the simple message.
How often do you rehearse those situations, Ross? You know, in season or during the pre-season?
Not enough.
Yeah,
Not enough.
yeah.
We got a scoreboard installed. It's a bit of a joke we haven't used it enough. But interestingly, we did some scenario close game pre the Adelaide game, and we found ourselves in a close game, and it certainly helped us. So you need to do it, but the game's got so many fundamentals and basics that you need to get right and prepare for the opposition. It's hard to get the win the game, save the game done enough.
Ross, we've run out of time, but I hope you've seen it, because on the back of you and Chris Scott and Alistair Clarkson, we've instituted a new segment on the program, the RFI. Have you got one for us before you leave us? Something that the game's done this year or something you'd like to see improved on?
Well, I think what they've improved, I really like what's been done, players charging with the head and seeking out contact to the head and the neck. I think the adjustment over the last 2 weeks, I personally like it. It's a step in the right direction.
Not many RFIs to go between now and the season for the Dockers. Obviously, there's some challenges ahead, but enjoy the bye. Look forward to Collingwood in a couple of weeks' time. But thanks for coming down and sharing some time.
Thanks, Stuart. Pleasure to be here.
Always an interesting guest is Ross Lyon.